has ripped up the Bill of Rights. Let's not give him a chance to rip it up still further. Our Constitution means something. The framers did the right thing. James Madison's prose was great, and he not only wrote the Constitution, but he also wrote the Bill of Rights. So the stakes in this election are bigger than any of us as individuals. Us as candidates or incumbent office holders, you as individual voters. It's the country that is at stake. Let's not let America down. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for supporting Paul Ryan and Ron Johnson. God bless you all, and God bless America.
Next up is Senator Ron Johnson. I said on my show the other day that I rarely get emotionally invested in races anymore, but I'm emotionally invested in this one because if there's any sense of karmic justice, any God in heaven, any sense of social order, Ron Johnson will win this race over Russ Feingold. Russ Feingold had 18 years in the U.S. Senate, and he did nothing on behalf of Wisconsin. McCain-Feingold has his name on it, and even that was a disaster and unconstitutional, and most of it has been pulled apart. But this is a man in Russ Feingold who led no charges, he chaired no committees, he passed no laws, and he did not help the Wisconsin people when they needed his help. Shamefully, the one thing he did do is ignore the VA scandal when the whistleblowers were trying to get his attention. Ron Johnson is a huge contrast in terms of a personality. He is a good and decent man, certainly better than myself and I think most. He stepped out of manufacturing in order to run for the Senate after the passage of Obamacare because he so strongly felt we needed a change in Washington and we should have citizen legislators in Washington. And he's the best example of that. He's already the chair of the Homeland Security Committee. He is working to secure our borders, and he's working to pass other legislation on behalf of the veterans and the VA centers. He has been everything, Ron, that Russ Feingold was not for 18 years. Let's send him back for years 7 through 12. Senator Ron Johnson.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. So y'all know I'm an accountant, right? Yeah, I'm pretty good at the numbers. Not the normal way I start off a speech here, but I was doing a little debate prep. You know, I got a debate on Friday with that same Senator Feingold that Jay was talking about.
Send him back to California.
Oh, I'd love to, trust me. So you can make $8,000 a lecture, right?
Yeah.
We got to give ourselves a little credit for winning some elections here. Let me tell you what's happened since I entered the Senate in terms of just government spending. What would have happened, what actually did happen. I don't think many of you know this. 2011, which was really the last year under Russ Feingold and the Senate Democrats controlled Congress's their budget, discretionary spending was $1.3 trillion. You know what discretionary spending was in the last fiscal year that just ended a week or so ago? $1.172. We actually have decreased discretionary spending by $175 billion. That's a 13% increase in the part of the budget we actually control. Give us some credit. Give yourselves some credit for electing fiscal conservatives. Now, the bad news is mandatory spending, the stuff that's out of control, the thing that is going to mortgage your future, your children's future, your grandchildren's future, that was up $428 billion, or up 19%. That's the problem. That's the fiscal cliff that we have to be concerned about. Let me put it in percentages. 2011, again, that's the last budget the Democrats control of. Discretionary spending was 37% of the budget. Mandatory spending was 63%. Last year, discretionary spending was only 30%. Mandatory spending had increased to 70%. A few more years in the future, it'll be 25 and 75%. The federal government is completely out of control. And here's maybe, I know we're getting really immune to these big numbers. Had President Obama's 2012 budget been enacted, in other words, if we would have followed their path, we would have spent about $20 trillion over the last 5 years. Instead, we spent about $18 trillion. Our debt would be $2 trillion higher had President Obama's budget and Senator Feingold been in office to vote for that budget. So I realize I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but the fact of the matter is elections matter a whole lot. And there's nothing that, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard when I hear people say, oh, there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. There's a tremendous amount of difference. I'm running against Senator Feingold, and let's face it, like every other Democrat, he's got a lot of plans. And all of his plans involve growing government, and when you grow government, you know what else you do? You take more out of your paycheck. You demand more money out of hard-working taxpayers. Republicans, certainly from my standpoint, we want to grow the private sector. We want to leave more of your money in your pocket. Now, you also have to compare records of people. You know, Senator Feingold was in office for 34 years, a 34-year career politician. What has he got to show for it?
Nothing.
Virtually nothing, right? I know he says he travels to every 72 counties. So do I. You know, my personal best is all 72 counties, just 42 days. It's really not that big a deal. It's the most enjoyable and easiest part of the job. I had somebody comment on my Facebook page, said pigeons do that. So he really didn't accomplish much. I know he's been asked that question. It's kind of a hummada. Well, more than Ron Johnson did. Well, prove it. Now, what he did do, he voted for a lot of bad stuff. 278 times he voted in favor of tax increases, which kind of proves the point. His only solution is growing government and taking more of your money, your hard-earned money. He was one of the 60 deciding votes on Obamacare. And of course, I saw him on Mike Goucher, and he said, you know, the health care bill really isn't as bad as some people are pretending it was. Pretending? I've gotten hundreds of letters from real people, real Wisconsinites. They're not pretending. When their premiums have skyrocketed, they lost their health care, as he promised they wouldn't, and they've lost access to doctors they knew and they trusted. There's a tremendous difference between the parties. You know, we believe the top priority government, the powers granted in the enumerated powers of the Constitution, is national defense, right? Now, Senator Feingold, he's got a plan to defeat ISIS. The problem is it's President Obama's plan is not working. It also contains elements of things he opposed. Do you realize, Senator Feingold, in 18 years, 11 of those 18 years, he voted against authorizing the military. But now he's got a plan to use that very same military that he didn't want to authorize. He's going to have them clean up the mess that he and President Obama, let's face it, kind of helped create. You know, Senator Feingold was the first member of Congress to recommend pulling our troops, the finest among us, not leaving a stabilizing force behind in Iraq after the enormous sacrifice that we made. It was that strategic blunder of historic proportions that allowed ISIS to rise from what was the thoroughly defeated ashes of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. That was a blunder, and Senator Feingold was the first one to call for that blunder. We need to understand that. Now, Congressman Sensenbrenner was talking about what this election is about. It's that difference. A party that actually wants to grow the private sector, leave more of your hard-earned money in your pocket, versus the other side that wants to just grow government, wants to take more of your hard-earned money, wants to control your lives. That's what this election is about. And here's what haunts me. You might remember this little speech President Obama gave right before he got elected. He said, in 5 days, we're going to fundamentally transform America. He meant it. He's been doing it. Now, listen, I'm Chairman of Homeland Security. I understand we've got a lot of problems in this nation. We got a lot of challenges. We have many threats. We have to solve those problems. We have to address them. We have to admit we have them. We've got to call the enemy by its name, Islamic terror. But fundamentally transform this nation is not something we needed to do. But that's what this election's about. Because this will be our last chance, certainly in my lifetime, probably the lifetime of my kids and grandkids, that we can prevent that fundamental transformation of America from being cemented in the very fabric of this society. This is our shot. We're not going to be able to repeal Obamacare the next time. This is our shot. Again, that's what haunts me. Let me tell you what gives me hope. We've all seen it. Back after 9/11, during 9/11, we've seen the pictures, the iconic pictures of those firefighters, those police officers, who now have a target painted on their back as they courageously walked up those stairs to help save their fellow citizens. We all have seen and heard about the heroes of Shanksville, the iconic words of Todd Beamer, "Let's roll." But do you know the passengers of United Flight 93, before he spoke those iconic words, took a vote to sacrifice themselves for their fellow citizens? We've all seen the finest among us who've sacrificed everything, lost their limbs to preserve our freedom and liberty. We still, in this country, produce exceptional people. We're an extraordinary nation. We are a phenomenal force for good in the world. That's what this election's about. This is about saving this country. Wisconsin's a firewall. We've got to save this Senate. We have to make sure the 10 electoral votes of Wisconsin do not get turned over to Hillary Clinton. We need to do everything we can to win this election here in Wisconsin. And what gives me hope is I look out in the crowd as I've traveled tirelessly around the state, talking to the good folks of Wisconsin. I can't think of a better group of people to shoulder that burden, to accept that challenge. And so let me leave you with just the final thought. The attitude that we must take over the next 31 days, because we know it's at stake. We've seen how close these elections can be. We've seen in Florida a presidential election decided by 537 votes and a few hanging chads. Next door in Minnesota, Norm Coleman won that Senate seat by a couple hundred votes. Somehow Al Franken is serving a second term. So these elections, and this one here in Wisconsin, will probably be decided by a razor-thin margin. So what I'm asking all of you to do, the attitude you must take, is that your own effort, the effort you put in over the next 31 days, your time, your talent, your treasure, you devote this effort, is literally the effort that'll save this country. That's what we have to do. That's my attitude. That's what your attitude has to be. So God bless you. God bless your effort. God bless Wisconsin and America. Take care.
Yeah, this is a great setup. Hillary Clinton could never pull off the stairs that we have behind this thing. And I've been up and down them 6 or 7 times now. Do I really have to introduce this next speaker, Governor Scott Walker? You know what he's done for you and for this state. He's turned it around completely by showing a focus and a resolve that is not just rare among politicians, it's unique. It is incredible what he has done. Most political leaders would not be willing to take on the fights Governor Walker has and endure the slings and the arrows and the abuse that has come his way and his family's way in order to do what is right for his state and his constituents. Act 10, property tax cuts, income tax cuts, tort reform, major job growth, a 4 or 5 point drop in the unemployment rate. He finally gave us concealed carry and castle law, right to work, prevailing wage reform. He is simply the man. Governor Scott Walker.
Good afternoon, Wisconsin. What a great day and what a great crowd. Standing in front of these flags, though, the first thing I want to start out with is this simple thought. Freedom, endowed by our Creator, defined by our Constitution, but defended each and every day by the men and women who proudly wear the uniform of these United States. For any of you who are veterans, would you just raise your hand? Any veterans, service members, families? Let's give them all an appropriate applause, because we wouldn't be here with freedom if it weren't for them and generations before. And while we're at it, not only thanking those men and women who wear the uniform or have worn the uniform and their families, but to keep us safe as well back at home. Let's give a big round of applause for all of our men and women in law enforcement, be it the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, all the others who risk their lives each and every day to keep us safe. Thank you. They deserve our thanks each and every day, so thank you for doing that. Pass it on. It's great to be here in Walworth County. Some of you know this, others may not, but I grew up here. I grew up in Delavan. That's exactly right. I used to flip hamburgers at McDonald's down the way, and I was right. Hey, there's the Delavan group, right? That's pretty good all around. I said my first job was actually right on the county line between Walworth and Rock County. I washed dishes at the Countryside Restaurant. And then I moved up to the big times. I started flipping hamburgers at McDonald's right on Highway 50 there before all that stuff came further out along the way. And every year on Labor Day, we'd come here to the Walworth County Fairgrounds. I can still remember watching the Demolition Derby over there. And when I was a kid, my dad loved the Statler Brothers. We saw the Statler Brothers and Charlie Pride right in those grandstands. And there's plenty of great memories along the way. So it's great to be here with all of you. And it's one of those where going forward, we want to make sure that not only for the memories that I had and many of you had, but that for our children. I've got my son Alex with me here today. My other son's Matt's graduated, is actually going down, and he's helping Governor Pat McCrory in North Carolina try to take on the liberal onslaught down in that state. He's the digital director for his campaign. But Alex is here with me. He's the statewide chair of the College Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin. And I see a bunch of younger College Republicans along with us, thanks to all the CRs. There's a great group of College Republicans in this state. And when I think about being back here, it reminds me that for Matt and for Alex, for my nieces Isabella and Eva, and for all the other young people like them, that's really what these elections are all about. You just heard a moment ago from Ron Johnson. There couldn't be a more important race here in the state of Wisconsin than his race for the United States Senate. Because you see, in our state, it's not just about the president and the vice president. That's important as well. But you look at the race for the United States Senate, and it's about as clear as it gets. You've got Ron Johnson, a manufacturer who spent most of his life outside of the private sector, who understands about numbers and bottom lines and actually putting people to work again, who's done a phenomenal job, but who isn't a politician, versus Russ Feingold, who for 18 years served in the United States. And remember what we did to Russ Feingold 6 years ago? We fired him, right? We fired Senator Feingold. Why? Well, for a number of reasons, but the number one reason on that list that we need to do more to talk about is he was the deciding vote for Obamacare, and we said back then it didn't work, and today we know it works even less. It even works less. They call it the Affordable Care Act, but we've seen in this state the results of that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for small business owners. It doesn't work for farmers. It doesn't work for working families. What it works for are people like President Obama and other liberals in Washington who think it's a good idea, but it's not affordable in this state. And once and for all, we fired Russ Feingold 8 years ago. We don't need to send Senator Feingold back to the United States Senate. We need to send someone with Wisconsin values, not Washington values. And Wisconsin needs Ron Johnson in the United States Senate. You know, it's one of those where every vote's going to count. You know, I turn on the TV. I don't do it too often, thankfully, but I turn it on for Packers games and occasionally to watch shows here or there. And I got to tell you, it's overwhelming to me the number of ads I see from Senator Feingold, from all the, for all his talk. Remember back in 1992 when he had that ad in front of his garage where he said all these promises, and one of which was he was going to get the majority of money for his races when he ran for the Senate from people here in Wisconsin. You know, he broke that promise in this election. That's part of the reason why he's got so many ads up. You know, all the liberals from out on the West Coast, the left coast, they're all out there helping him run those ads out there, even though it's directly opposed to what he said he was going to do. And they're trying to twist the facts out there. They're trying to make it pretend like Russ Feingold was never in the Senate. Well, he was there for 18 years. He had a chance to do something for the people of the state, and he failed. And he's done nothing for the last 6 years except get ready to come back and run again so he can hang out with his friends in Washington instead of serving the people of Wisconsin. I need your help. I appreciate the signs, and I appreciate putting up signs in your yard. I appreciate those who've donated to Ron's campaign. But I got to tell you, between now and a month from now, on November 8th, we need your help going out door to door, person to person, talk to people at church, talk to people at work. It's so important. You should even talk to your family and friends about why we need to go out and help Ron Johnson. If you think you can't make a difference, remember this. At least for Tonette and I, what we found out over the years is that we've never gone to a new restaurant for the first time based solely on an ad or a flyer. We go to a new restaurant for the first time, at least. An ad or a flyer might remind us about why it's important to go back there. But we've never gone to a restaurant for the first time just based on an ad or flyer. You know what's got us to go there? Was a family member, a friend, or a neighbor who said, hey, this is a nice restaurant. You ought to try it out. If you can influence your family and your friends about why it's important to go eat somewhere, how much more important is it to tell them who should be the United States Senator from the state of Wisconsin, something that will have a dynamic impact on not just your future, but the future of your children and your grandchildren and people all across this country. Are you all committed to go out and help Ron Johnson by talking to your friends and neighbors and coworkers? And then the other part we need your help on is particularly here in the state. You know, in these elections, there's a lot of national attention out there, but I want to particularly tell you how important it is to elect people to the state assembly and the state senate here in the state of Wisconsin. You see, before the November elections in 2010, Democrats controlled everything in this state. State assembly, state senate, governor, lieutenant governor, all the state offices but one were controlled by Democrats. And remember how great things were back then? Back at the beginning of 2010, the unemployment rate was 9.2%. In the 4 years before we took office, the state lost 133,000 jobs. And worse yet, it wasn't just those people losing jobs, but a lot of people, just to keep others working, took pay cuts. So on top of lost jobs, there was lost opportunity. There were small businesses going out. There were all sorts of challenges in this state. And that's why when you elected me and Rebecca Clayfish and people like Robin Voss and Scott Fitzgerald and others to take control of state government, the assembly and the senate, as well as in the governor's office, we didn't wait. We started the very first day, called a special session, and started taking the power back from the big government special interest to put it back into your hands, the hands of the hardworking taxpayers. And I'm proud to tell you, since that time, we went from 9.2% unemployment down to 4.2% unemployment. We've seen the lowest unemployment we've had for the past 15 plus years. You can clap for that, sure. In fact, the last time we had unemployment that low was March of 2001, which may not seem that far back for some of us, but Matt and Alex, who are 21 and 22 today, the last time unemployment was that low, Matt and Alex were 5 and 6 years old. So that kind of puts it in perspective. And even better, it's not just that unemployment's low. We have more people employed in the state of Wisconsin than we've ever had before. Ever in our state's history. This year, we had an all-time high. Hit an all-time high because, you know, nationally, when the president talks about unemployment dipping down a little bit, one of the things they ignore is that part of the reason for that nationally is because the percentage of people going down is the lowest it's been since 1977. That means a lot of people just given up. They've given up about entering the workforce. That's not the case here in Wisconsin. Our labor force participation rate, that's what an economist calls it. It's really just the percentage of people in the workforce is one of the highest in the country. We're consistently in the top 10. That means when unemployment goes down, that's because people are actually working in this state. And we want to make sure even more people are working in this state. Any of you who are small business owners know one of the biggest challenges we have going forward is not creating jobs it's funding enough people to fill those jobs, people with the qualifications to fill those jobs. And so one of the things we put a focus on is how can we not only help train more people in our schools and our technical colleges and our worker training programs, but going forward, how can we make sure there's even more people in the workforce? And so we've made all sorts of changes to make it easier to create jobs and put people to work. We've lowered property taxes. They're lower today than they were 5 years ago. We've lowered income taxes. They're lower today than they were 5 years ago. We've reined in frivolous and out-of-control lawsuits. We've passed changes to make sure that we got rid of the out-of-control regulations and tried to do more to enforce common sense and not bureaucratic red tape. There's still more work to be done. But one of the big challenges we have is we need to have even more people into the workforce. To me, when I think about this Packers windbreaker I'm wearing, it makes me think of football. We've got too many people on the sidelines and not enough people in the game. So I'm proud to tell you one of the things we did, not I did, the legislature helped us out along the way. One of the things we have done in this state is say, if you are an adult who is physically and mentally capable of working, if you're physically and mentally capable of working, particularly for those who don't have children in the home, you want assistance, things like food stamps from the state. You don't get them in this state anymore unless you're enrolled in our job training program and or working at least 80 hours a month. You're looking for work 5 days a week, and you're able to pass a drug test in the state of Wisconsin. Now, you can only imagine what the liberals in Madison said when we tried to do that. In fact, some of them are still fighting us on the drug testing in Washington as well under the Obama administration. But you can only imagine what they said. They said, Governor, you're making it harder to get government assistance. I said, no, I'm not. I love the people of the state so much. I know there are so many jobs out there. I know just last week we saw over 90,000 job openings listed on JobCenterWisconsin.com. We know there's work to be had. We're not making it harder to get government assistance. We're making it easier to get a job in the state of Wisconsin. Because you see, that's what it's all about. Here in the state, it's about Wisconsin getting back to work. It's about getting this state back to work. That's what we've done over the last 5 and a half years, and that's what we're going to continue to do going forward. Because for Matt and for Alex and for all your sons and daughters, your grandsons and your granddaughters, your nieces and your nephews, that's what the future of the state is all about. And that's why we need more members of the Assembly and the Senate to help us along that cause. Because you see, when I was growing up down here in Delavan, I went to Delavan Darien High School. I got to tell you, I don't ever remember anybody in my graduating class signing my yearbook saying, Scott, good luck becoming dependent on the government. All right? That's not the American way. That's not the American way. That's not the American dream. The American dream is that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your parents did for a living, no matter what their background was, no matter what your zip code, that if you work hard and with determination, you live in a country where there's an equal opportunity for everyone here, but the outcome should be up to each and every one of us. The other side thinks that the outcome should be determined by the government. We think the opportunity should be guaranteed, but the outcome is up to each and every one of us. That is the American dream. That is alive and well here in the state of Wisconsin. And with Republicans in charge of your state government, that's exactly what it's going to be going forward. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your determination. God bless Wisconsin. God bless America. And most importantly, God bless our men and women in uniform fighting for our freedoms even as we speak. Thank you all for coming out.
All right. I feel like Congressman Paul Ryan should be introducing me because you folks in the crowd know him better than I do. It has been you that have worked every 2 years to elect him to Congress and re-elect him to Congress time after time. It's you that saw him go from an aide to Jack Kemp to literally being the leading voice in entitlement reform, in spending reform in Washington, D.C. There was a time when his fellow congressmen weren't with him on those things, and he fought just as hard, doubled down quite often, to make them his most important issues. and the most important issues that Washington is facing right now, and it makes this election so critical. I think it says a lot about Congressman Ryan, again, that he didn't want to be Speaker. It wasn't on his career path, but when his colleagues came to him and said, "We really need you to do it. You're about the only one who can fill this role right now," he stepped up and did it for the Congress, for America, for you folks, when his career path was something different. So, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Paul Ryan.
Hey, thank you. Hey, everybody. How about it, huh? Man, good day. Good to see you. What a beautiful day, huh? Welcome to Fall Fest, you guys. Welcome to Fall Fest. Look, let me just start off by saying there is a bit of an elephant in the room. And it is a troubling situation. I'm serious, it is. I put out a statement about this last night. I meant what I said, and it's still how I feel. But that is not what we are here to talk about today. You know what we do here at Fall Fest? We talk about our ideas. We talk about our solutions. We talk about our conservative principles. And we promote our candidates right here in Wisconsin that are fighting for us, candidates like our Senator Ron Johnson. You know, what matters in elections is, are we giving people real choices? 7 people out of 10 people in America, 7 out of 10 people in America, they don't think this country's on the right track, do they? 7 out of 10 people, they think that their kids are going to be worse off in this country. We have never done that before in this country. We have never given the next generation a darker future. We have always stepped up and fixed the problems in front of us in our generation so that our children and our grandchildren can be better off. And you know what? You know what we're doing about it in the House? You know what we're doing about it as conservatives? We are offering people a better way. We are offering solutions. I tell you what, last January we got together, we said, we need to take an agenda to the country. We need to show men and women in America, those 7 out of 10 people, that's not just Republicans, that's not just independents, that's Democrats also. They need to have solutions, and we're offering them. Let me tell you a few things. Number 1, 6 plans. Go to better.gop. 6 things. We have got to get people out of welfare and back into the workforce. Our welfare system isn't working. Our welfare system tells people to stay out of work. We need to get people back into work so they can get on the ladder of life, so that they can reach their dreams. We're showing you exactly what welfare reform looks like. So you know what? Second thing, we are not safe. You know this. You see the terrorist attacks in this country. You see what's going on overseas. We have a President Obama, that is phoning it in on national security. We have a president that has been hollowing out our military. We are showing you exactly what it takes to rebuild our military, to secure our border, to go on offense against ISIS, and to keep America safe. This is important. I tell you what, and if you want to get jobs in this economy, get the federal government out of the business of micromanaging every little aspect of our lives, of our communities, of our society, of our small businesses. We are losing self-government in this country. We've got this new 4th branch of government. Unelected bureaucrats are writing our laws. Look at this. We got a case magnum made right over there in Racine. And you got this Waters of the USA regulation coming from the EPA. It is telling farmers how, where, when, and what they got to do if they want to farm. And these things don't go through Congress. So here's what we're saying. All of these rules and all of these regulations that come from these unelected bureaucracies that don't know our communities, that don't know our people, that don't know our businesses, all of that has got to go through Congress. Congress for a final vote approval amendment before it goes into effect. It's a simple principle. The principle is one of our founding principles. We govern ourselves as Americans. We believe in self-government. The laws that we live under in this country need to be written by us through our elected representatives, not by these unelected bureaucracies. And that is exactly what we're offering. That is exactly what we're running on. That is exactly what we're giving people. Let me tell you what. How many of you think Obamacare is working? I don't think he thinks Obamacare is working either. Obamacare is failing. Biggest health insurance company in the world, in the country, United, they pulled out. Aetna pulled out. This thing is in a death spiral. Premiums are going up double digit every year. The deductibles are so high you might as well not even have health insurance. We are showing you, first time in 6 years, Republicans have an alternative. It's not just repeal, it's repeal and replace Obamacare with patient-centered health care so we can choose what we want for our families. More choice, more competition, lower prices. And I got to tell you, you are not going to fix this economy. You are not going to grow jobs. You are not going to get economic growth and job creation if you do not scrap this tax code and start over and reform the IRS and our tax code. You need to go to better.gop and see what we're talking about. You need to go to better.gop and see what our solutions are. You see, we need to go from being seen as just an opposition party to being a proposition party. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are showing you, our fellow citizens, that we as Republicans, that we as conservatives have answers and solutions to this country's big problems. And I just want to tell you something. We have got a responsibility for ourselves right here in Wisconsin. We've got a responsibility right here in Wisconsin. And our responsibility right here in Wisconsin is to make sure that we do not send Russ Feingold to the United States Senate to join the liberal progressives, giving us liberal judges. We have got to do everything for that man on your sign, Ron Johnson, to make sure that Ron Johnson is and stays and remains our United States Senator. This is something that's right here within our power. This is something that we as Wisconsinites need to do. So I just want to say to all of you for Fall Fest, thank you for coming out and supporting us. I see so many friends. I see so many people who've been out there working hard for us. Thank you so much for working for us. Thank you so much. And I want to ask Ron Johnson and Scott Walker to come out here. We got to remember, Ron Johnson is the man that we have to vote for. We as conservatives are offering solutions. This is exactly what we will do here in Wisconsin. We will deliver our 10 electoral votes. We will fight for our conservatives, and we will offer this country solutions, and we will meet the moment for what it is. Thank you for coming out for Fall Fest, everybody. Thank you so much, you guys. God bless you all. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right back to the building. Great job.